Okay, perfect. Natalie, what is the top of your ISO showing?
So it says ISO sensitivity. Is that the correct
Yes,
one?
correct.
Okay. 1600.
1600. Okay, and you are in the D3. I think we're going to need to do the same thing for you. Try to go into your actual settings, um, because I think we need to unlock. I'm going to try to look here and see. It might not. Okay, yes, you can extend yours up to 3200.
Okay.
So same similar thing as Taylor. If you're in your menu instead of your settings, like kind of like this area of your camera, you're going to
Okay.
be looking for something that says like ISO settings.
Yeah, it says the ISO sensitivity settings.
Yes, so you want to take it to 3200.
Hmm. It just says after the 1600 it has high 1.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you can access that if you need to. Is it turned on?
It is.
Okay. So as long as you can take your ISO up, that's just what I want you to be able to do. This is like a funny thing where kind of the cameras come and it doesn't always have the full potential. So, okay, ISO, easy on a number line. We're starting at 100. We're going up as we increase our ISO. Think of this as a little sensor inside of your camera that's taking in available light depending on what you're telling the lens to do. So we can increase the sensor and say, hey, when the lens is doing its thing, we need you to take in as much light as you can find, almost like cracking a door, cracking a window, and getting light from a hallway to come in, that type of thing. And so the sensor is sensitive. So our kind of risk zone for this is that the higher the ISO, the more likely that you're going to get grain in your images. And so they won't be as clear and as smooth. That's something that's become pretty easy to edit out, but it can affect the quality of your images, especially if you have to use a really high ISO. Again, you guys are a little bit limited with the bodies that you're using. I mean, not bad. Taylor, you especially, you can get up to 6,000, but Natalie, knowing your tip top is 3,000. If it tells you anything, my camera's top is 50,000. So the ISO range is a big deal when it comes to the type of camera you use. A couple weeks ago, I shot a wedding in Central Park, New York City. The ceremony was happening after sunset. She wanted candlelit everywhere, and she didn't want me to use any flash. That's hard, especially when we're talking about home base. So wanting people to be in focus and, all the things. And so I actually rented an upgraded body that had an even higher ISO range to make sure that I could push it a little bit without having grain in all of my images. So that's a rare circumstance. Again, most of the time we're talking about even light, accessible light. But for ISO, staying kind of in the lower range is where you want to be. I often am shooting, that's a typo on my sheet. I'm often shooting right around 400. So if you set your ISO at 400, tonight you guys are probably going to have to go higher than that. But I want you to think of it this way. To be in the safe zone, you want to be at half your max ISO. So like Taylor's camera can go to 6,400. So anywhere 3,000 or lower is pretty safe. Natalie, your camera can go to 3,200, so anywhere 1,500 or lower is safe. Once you cross that middle point, and sometimes even at that middle point, you're going to see grain and you're going to see that come through in your files. But sometimes it's worth it if you really need the light. So again, ISO, a setting you are going to be the least likely to change. that's just the one that for me, unless I'm really, really dark or really, really light, I can always get the light I need, typically from shutter speed and aperture. So again, this is where it kind of gets easy to say, cool, like there's one thing I don't have to think about for aperture. If you're kind of locking it in, like for me, I pretty much shoot everything at 2.8. It's going to take a lot for me to move it up or down. So really, shutter speed ends up becoming the dial on top of your camera that you're dancing with throughout taking pictures of something. You're taking it up or down as your kid is running around or as things are happening. Natalie, when you're inside and you're shooting on a white background and you've got available window light, it's going to be easier for you to not even have to change your settings once you get them set. You'll just be able to rotate product through, which is the whole goal. But yeah, ISO is that last piece. Again, contingent on the body of your camera that you're using and has everything to do with kind of the light that's coming through that the lens isn't managing and telling your camera body what to do with it. Throw it away or keep it, basically. So you guys did it. You made it through the exposure triangle and kind of how all of these work. I want to actually like get up and moving and shooting, but I want to touch on a few things before we do that so that you can kind of see all of this in action and get your feet wet a little bit, and I can look at your images and we'll talk through post-process and things like that. So a couple of other settings that are important to note when you're shooting in manual, if you kind of go to your settings screen. So we've talked about ISO, we've talked about aperture. Our ISO should be at 400. Our aperture is going to be in that 3.5 area. We talked about a shutter speed of 160 to then be able to go down or up as needed. So some other things you see here, you'll see an AWB. That stands for auto white balance. Honestly, that is an auto setting I recommend keeping there. Unless you're a professional photographer, it is so easy now when we edit on our phones and computers to adjust the white balance. And white balance is talking about when an image looks blue or yellow or kind of in between. When it has a color to it, Natalie, you'll run into this a lot as you're doing lay flats. White on a color spectrum in a camera translates as blue a lot of the time. So white balance is something that comes into play when you're shooting on a white flat, for example. So for you, I might recommend that you go into this setting. Something that you can kind of look into after this class is the Kelvin setting. It's called color temperature. It stands with a K as the symbol. And this is something, this is like basically a temperature reading within the camera, and you can adjust it. The easiest way to understand, I always forget how it works. I just basically, when I'm shooting something white, I'll go into that setting and I'll move the wheel and until things look white on my camera, just so I don't have as much post-processing to do. But I'm not an expert on Kelvin because most of the time I'm not having to fuss with it. But for you and your, sorry, go ahead.
You said Kelvin?
Yeah, Kelvin is what they call it. It's got a K. It looks like when I go in and I change it, it looks like a big K.
Okay.
And then it says color temperature at the bottom. Again, not critical. If you were to shoot in auto, I'm going to show you guys at the end how to adjust white balance that needs to be fixed on an image. But that's another setting that you might want to play with. You guys, I'm guessing your cameras, I think, have you shooting on SD cards like this, these little guys. So one thing to think about when you look at your file format next to, let me go in here. When you look at your SD card, we have all these choices for file formats. So we have RAW, RAW with an M, RAW with an S, and then this L. And all these different kind of like pie pieces, if you will. So basically the top line here are JPEG files. And if you're shooting in JPEG, I want you to always be shooting in the L with the full pie piece. That's the largest JPEG available. And if you guys get comfortable or it makes sense, like Natalie, for you to shoot in RAW, R-A-W, that basically is a file format that is telling the camera, I want you to take in all the data you can find when you take a picture. I want you to collect everything and keep it. A JPEG file is an automatically compressed image. It has less information. So for example, Taylor's at the playground. She's taking a picture of her son. She's shooting in JPEG. She gets home. She realizes she thought they looked okay on her camera, but actually they're really bright. And his face is like, almost white, kind of detail missing on one side from where the sun was. In RAW, she's going to be able to recover that because the image actually contains more information of his face. You just can't see it because of the settings. Whereas in JPEG, you're going to take the brightness down and it's going to kind of get this like weird gray thing going on where it's trying to create data that's basically not there. So for professional photographers, we shoot in RAW. We want you to be able to have the best and the biggest files to print and use. And of course, again, they look better. But for everyday people, I wouldn't necessarily fuss with it. RAW images do require an editing program, meaning you can't just like open them. They have to have a program to open to read them. Computers are not built to open them the way they are JPEGs. So, if you're getting into that, if that's something that makes sense for life or business, using a program like Adobe Lightroom is a great way to pull those raw files in, and then it's super easy. You have to export anyway, and you just export as a JPEG file, and I can show you guys that in a little bit. So just make sure.
The raw is that I'm not finding that.
So you should, do you see where your kind of like file format is? Image quality is another word for it. Do you see that in your settings?
I see.
So you should have a choice. It should say literally raw as an option, but most people are going to be, oh my gosh.
I have two. It's got NEF raw, and then it's got raw plus JPEG.
So the raw plus JPEG basically is making 2 copies of every image, a JPEG and a raw. I don't shoot that way. There's a lot of people that do. When I got started shooting RAW, I did because RAW freaked me out. I had no reason to be freaked out, but I wanted a JPEG copy just in case I couldn't manipulate the RAW file.
Okay.
But otherwise, you should just be able to use that RAW NEF setting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and then the final piece is looking at, so we talked about your lens being on autofocus, meaning when you zoom, you're not going to have to actually focus the lens. You guys shouldn't have to do that. I only manually focus when I'm taking pictures of like the insides of diamonds for my brides because you have to get really detailed. Otherwise, I'm using that. But that is different than an autofocal point. So you should have a little button that kind of looks like it's like 4 squares and then a square in the middle, basically a quadrant. And when you look through your camera and you hit that button, a bunch of little red squares, all of your focal points basically should light up. And when you do that, if you're able to see those lighting up and you scroll the wheel either on top or on the back of your camera, a lot of times you're going to be able to move an individual square around, or for some people it's going to move sections of squares around. So this is basically choosing where your camera is going to be focusing as you're shooting. Have you guys been able to find that okay?
I've not.
Okay. Do you see the button?
No, not yet.
Okay, let's see here. It's not your metering.
It might be this button that's got a magnifying glass and then it's got a square. Oh yeah, it's got squares in it.
You found it?
I think.
Try looking through and pushing that button and see if you can see these red squares.
And no red squares.
No red squares. Okay, let's see here.
Does yours have like 2 magnifying glasses, a negative and a positive one?
It does.
Mine works when you hit the positive one
Okay.
and look through it.
No, no red squares yet.
Let's see here.
There's a grid on the lens, but there's nothing that's light, like red or anything.
So it's when you push halfway down, is it telling you where it's focusing? It's odd that's nothing like
Like a number or no?
not a number, like to tell you where the camera is focusing, basically. I think I found a tutorial here. Let me see.
Love taking photos? Join Guru Shots, the world's greatest photographer.
Focusing, once it's turned on, is that when you push the shutter button halfway down, it engages the camera's focusing systems. So that's how you focus. If you push it down all the way, it's going to take the picture. I'll do it real quick.
Oh, there. Okay.
Did you
Pretty
get it?
straightforward.
That worked.
Like watching this guy in like a safari. He looks like a safari adventurer that's like doing a 10-minute YouTube video.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So this is not mandatory for tonight, but I want to introduce you guys into just a concept to think about as kind of like takeaway homework. So when your camera is kind of in an autofocus mode like it's basically all cameras come with all these focal points. So they'll boast like 28 focal points, 42 focal points, like all these different areas that the camera can focus. But I'll use my hand as an example. If I'm laying a pen across the middle of my hand, it's really solid. Like I could hold this for a while. My arm's going to get tired, but my hand is very solid in the center. Even if I were to stand it upright, it will last a second kind of in the center of my hand. But if I balance it on the edge of my pinky, it's going to immediately fall. And there's no way I could stand it up even for a second. I can hardly even balance it while I'm holding it. So that's kind of example of your focal points. And when you're letting your camera choose and it's moving at all these different places, it's putting the focal point in vulnerable spots of the camera. And again, chance for blur, chance for shake, chance for out of focus or partial focus become a lot higher as that point is jumping around. So one thing I recommend is practicing a method called focus and recompose. This takes a little bit of practice, but I seriously feel like I always tell people, if you do everything we talk about in class for 5 minutes for the next 5 days, even in your kitchen, you will have this down. And if you do focus and recompose as part of that, you'll have it down pat. So the idea is you lock your center point right in the middle. You take that red square in the middle of all those squares you have a choice over and you say, I'm staying here. But you don't want all of your images centered. That's really boring. And photography is all about rules of thirds, meaning you want subjects to take up kind of a third of an image, or you want to frame your subject in a third of a frame instead of having everything dead center. And so what I do in order to keep that focal point in the center is I'll focus, and then you can hear my shutter speed going off, but I basically, I push halfway down and then I drag depending on where I want my subject to be in the frame. So if I'm taking a picture of a family and maybe there's a telephone pole behind them here, I'm going to focus and then I'm going to drag my camera this way to make sure that I'm eliminating the telephone pole from the image, but I'm keeping my subject in focus. Now again, this takes a little bit of practice, one, because you're having to basically in your brain say, this is what I want to take a picture of, and this is how I want to frame it, and you're not doing that all in one fell swoop. And there's a little bit of motion as you're taking the picture. So you can't go slow. My assistant, who does not shoot, she just works with me on weddings, when she takes pictures for me, she's really slow at focus and recompose. So she's like here, and then she's here, and I'm like, Abby, you can't go that long. The camera is starting to drag. You have to be here and here. So it does take a little bit of practice, but completely worth it. If you're not used to anything different, it would be something that would be cool to get in the habit of, again, so that your home base can be just knowing that focal point is locked and loaded in the center. And I had a lot of trouble with blurriness and out of focus images for a season in my business, and I was so done with it. So this is one of the ways I manage that. And now I find I don't have to crop basically any of my images because I shoot them in the camera the way I want them. Now, obviously, with kids and moving subjects that are toddler age, that gets a little harder, but you are still able to kind of just also center them and then crop it later, or just leave it as is. So just some other things about the settings in your camera. I also want to make sure you guys look at this little plus and minus wheel that is right next to your eyepiece. If you look through your camera while it's on and push halfway down, I basically want you to turn this wheel all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. And I want you to leave it where the image is the most clear. This is fitting your eyepiece to your literal eye. And a lot of people have never moved it. I'm often on the beach shooting with tourists. They, hey, can you take a picture of my family? I look through their camera. I'm like, how can you even see? And for 5 years, they've been shooting with the eyepiece not adjusted, and they are like blown away just by this little wheel.
I'm not finding it.
It's
I'm not
really,
supposed to-
it's really tiny. It should be right up here by your eyepiece, Natalie. I mean, it should be like right next to, nope, right by your eyepiece. Like this is where you look through, and it should be nestled right around that. And it's got a plus and a minus. You don't see anything? Let's see here. Yeah, viewfinder diopter. It looks like it is right, look straight at the back of your camera on the right-hand side of your eyepiece. You don't see a little wheel?
The wheel that we were doing at the very beginning with using the changing of the numbers, that wheel?
No, it's teeny tiny, and it should be nestled right with your, let me send you a picture here. It looks like it's just right on the right side of your eyepiece. Yeah, diopter wheel. Let's see here.
Oh, it moves up and down. Okay. I got it. Okay.
Let's see here. I put a picture in the chat if you need it. Taylor, did you get yours fitted for your eye?
Yeah.
I'm curious, is yours all the way to one side or the other, or in the middle?
I go back and forth. Like part of me is in the middle, and then part of me is all the way to the left. They're not that different.
Okay.
But like anywhere in between is blurry.
Okay. Yeah, I have to be like all the way to the left, like completely pushed to the left.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious of what people's eyes say. Natalie, what about you? Are you all the way to one side or in the middle?
Yeah.
You're what?
It's 3 clicks down.
3 clicks down. Okay. I don't know. Mine doesn't work like that. Mine just rolls like a wheel. But as long as you can see through it,
Yep.
make sure make sure it's the right wheel. I just want to make sure you didn't adjust the setting. I put a picture for you in the chat. It's the little wheel there that's, I don't know how to describe it. It's got like a half circle on it right by the eyepiece when this picture pops up on the right there.
Yeah, I don't have a wheel. It just has it's a click up and down, and it has like 6 clicks.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay,
Yeah.
well, hey, as long as you can see, that's all that matters. So basically, I just want to make sure that you can see, and that you know sometimes when I look through my camera, I'm like, why can't I see? The diopter has gotten moved. And so again, 2 settings that can easily get bumped in your bag: the manual autofocus, manual focus button on your lens, and then the diopter on your camera. So I'm going to set you guys loose, but you have like some specific challenges here. So I want you to take 5 or 7 minutes and actually go shoot around your houses. So I'd like you to shoot somewhere. I know it's nighttime, so this is like the hardest it gets because lamplight is funky. It makes things really yellow. Natural light is ideal, which by the way, when there is natural light, turn off light bulb light so it can just be that pretty natural light and your camera can figure it out. Sounds counterintuitive, but when I go inside for newborn shoots and things like that, I turn off all the overhead lights in the house and I just open up all the windows. So I can just have one type of light for my camera to figure out because lamp light just isn't the same. So for you tonight, you're gonna have lamp light, you're gonna have overhead light. I usually send people to their kitchen. Usually that's a kind of open space where you can turn some different lights on. Set a coffee cup on the counter or a vase, something where you can get some space. And I want you to practice depth of field. So I want you to practice really focusing on that coffee cup or that vase, getting it away from the counter or the backsplash, whatever, and really being able to focus on that and kind of seeing that background disappear by practicing that. And then I want you to go to maybe a space that has a little less available light, or you can go outside if it's cold and easy to do where you are. Flip on your front lights and go ahead and stand in your driveway or in the street and take a picture of the outside. That's going to push your settings into using the available light outside to try to get a photo of your house or where you live at night. So those are just a couple of options. Another is to just get a photo that you just feel like this is just really well lit. Doesn't matter where you are or what it's of, but you can confidently say like, this is bright, this is sharp, I like it. Remember, we're leaving with our shutter speeds at 160, your aperture's at 3.5, and we're starting your ISO at 400, but you can go up. So Taylor's goal is to stop before 3,000. Natalie's goal is to stop before 1,500. But trust me, you guys are probably going to need to bump that ISO tonight while you're shooting. And don't be afraid to zoom. Just know that's going to increase your aperture and darken up your images. So go ahead and get moving. I'm not going to move. So if you get stuck or you're not sure about something, come back and then we'll see how it goes. On.
I am failing. This is not working for me.
Okay.
No.
What are your settings? Oh, first of all,
So
too bright or too dark?
I'm sorry.
Are you too bright or too dark in your images?
They're just very grainy. I'm still in the kitchen. I haven't even gone outside yet.
That's
to do the
okay.
other one.
Did you bring your ISO down?
I did. I'm down to 200 and it's still pretty grainy.
I have no idea why it would be grainy if your ISO is at 200. What's your shutter speed at?
Still at 3.5.
Is your shutter speed at 200? Is that what you mean? That's the 1 over something number, and then your aperture would be at 3.5?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a lot.
I have that at 100. I've changed that down.
Your shutter speed's at 100? Okay. And your ISO is at 1,000?
Yes.
Are your images bright?
Yes.
So one thought is to take your ISO down. Like if you have enough light, if your images are bright enough and you're finding that they're grainy, the problem is your camera body doesn't have a very high ISO range. Remember, we started at 1,600, so it could just get really grainy fast because that sensor is just pretty small. So for you, if we were to bring your ISO, let's say down to 500, my hope would be, yeah, your images are going to be darker, but you're going to take that grain out. And if they're bright to start with, hopefully if you bring your ISO down, you should be okay. The good thing for you about shooting products is you're going to do it with natural light. So yeah, go back to the kitchen. No, you're okay. I'll chat with Taylor, but stay encouraged there. Like natural light's going to help you. How'd it go, Taylor?
Good, really good.
Yeah?
I did a coffee cup and played around with it, and I feel like it's definitely better than what I would have done before that.
Good. That's wonderful.
And then the only thing, like I went to a dark room because our outside is not super well lit.
Okay.
So I went to like our entry room and there were no lights on, and I guess I learned that if it's too dark, it won't even take the image.
So it does need something to focus on. So yeah, if it's really, really dark and there's nothing for the camera to kind of grab onto, it can be hard.
Yeah, so I just ended up turning like a hall light on and then going into a different room and just turned a lamp on instead of the overhead light and played with it some more, and that was really helpful.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, good. And did you have to adjust your settings a lot?
Yeah, so in the first room I went to, I took a picture of like I don't know, like you can see it. It's just like.
Oh, I love it.
Thanks. And so that this is the first shutter speed I was at.
Okay, so that's 1/30.
Yeah, just because it was really dark.
Okay, so
And
yeah.
I went to a lower one, and it turned out better. Like it was much clearer. And
But what's your ISO?
say that again.
What's your ISO?
How do I tell it what I had it at the time?
You should have an info button.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It was high. I had it at 3200 then, but I didn't go over that.
Okay. So yeah, that shut like 1/15, the chances that that image is going to be blurry handheld are really high. So it might look okay on your screen, but that's not always accurate. So just be careful.
Okay.
If it's a situation where it's truly that dark, the goal would be to introduce more light. But at least you saw the difference. Like being able to visualize what it does on your camera will help.
Right. And then same thing in the other room. Like I started high. Let me see what it says. I started with 3200 and I lowered my shutter speed.
Because it was dark.
Yeah, like, and so I only had, let's see the best picture I got of this. I mean, this is like a turtle picture because I'm taking a picture of a picture, so it looks silly.
That's okay.
There's just something to focus on. So like this is the best one I got with the light. No.
Oh yeah, okay. 1/40.
Like, the good one was 1/40 with the ISO of 3200. But like when I started, it looked like this. So it was much better.
Pull it this way. Pull it this way for me. To your right. Pull your camera to the right. There we go. Yeah, that way. Yeah. Sorry, my chat screen is like right here. Okay.
It was really dark when I started, and that was at the 160.
Okay.
So going down definitely helped that. Like that was good to see.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like when I've shot, like I have a lot of pictures on here from last Christmas. That's when I got this camera, and like some of them are just so dark, and you can tell I'm just playing with settings at the time.
Sure.
But good to know like how to adjust that.
Yeah. And I think for you, like if you can get like a $90 used 50mm 1.8 on Amazon, that's going to be huge, because imagine right now if your aperture could go down to 2.5, like it'd be a game changer. And with little kids, you don't want to drop that shutter speed because it's going to mess everything up. So having that for the holidays so you can get him opening presents and stuff will be so good, because you'll be able to drop that drop that aperture down, and then your shutter speed's going to be able to stay in a safe zone. And hopefully the grain's not too bad around 3000 for you.
Yeah, and I didn't like in the normal room I didn't have to go like in the kitchen picture. So that high. Let me see.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I was just at the 1600 in like the kitchen light, and that was good.
Perfect. Yeah, good. So that helps you too to know, like, okay, when I'm like in an extreme, I'm still at only half my ISO, which is the goal. Like, I want you to be conservative with your settings. Natalie, any more luck?
I think I need a new camera.
Really?
Yeah, it's just really bad. They're so grainy. Playing with all the numbers.
I mean, that's crazy, girl, because you're not pushing settings. Like, we're being pretty safe. So,
Boo.
boo. Well, the good news is there's great used camera bodies out there.
Okay.
If you choose to go that route, I can, let me see here. Let me put in the chat, B&H photo. You can look directly at Nikon and Canon and they're refurbished. I've often bought from them. And then Amazon certified. Those are all places that I've bought. I hardly ever buy brand new. It's kind of like a car, as long as someone's been maintaining it. Now with a camera body, you want to make sure if you're buying a new camera body, you're asking for the number of shutter clicks that are on that body. So basically the number of times that sensor has opened and closed, because those do have a certain life. But
what's the number to look for?
That's hard to say. But if you're buying direct from somebody, a refurbished product, it's going to come with a year-long warranty. So those websites that I put in the chat will be helpful there. Okay. Because you're using it for business and personal stuff, like it'll 100% pay off. But yeah, if you've got grain at 500 ISO, that is going to be really tough, especially to shoot a quality lay flat.
Yeah, it's all grain.
Ugh.
I've tried all.
Have you had that problem before?
This is the first time I've used this. I've had a professional do all my lays. Try see if I could do it with this camera. No.
How old is that camera?
My husband just yelled old.
Okay, because I was gonna say, I wonder if it's dirty, because that's a thing. Like, so where the lens detaches, that's where the mirror and the sensor pieces are. So sometimes that needs to be cleaned out. You can use like compressed air, like gentle, or like a little microfiber cloth. Usually I have my husband do that because I'm not good with things. I'm like, just wipe it off. Or if there's like a camera place close to you, you could have it looked at. But I'm wondering if there's dust on your sensor or something, like if it's been sitting in a bag, basically. So that might be where something like just really gently cleaning the inside of your lens and then cleaning that interior part and seeing if there's a change. You are shooting on an older body. You are shooting with limitations. Just that, I know that just from the ISO range. So, but like, even if you could, I don't know, sell that for parts, or, find a camera store there in Indiana that might be able to clean it and look at it, that would be helpful. Like I said to Taylor, I would recommend the 50 millimeter for you. I recommend it for everybody. I would also consider looking at a 28 millimeter, Natalie. So you guys right now are shooting on crop sensor bodies, which means the camera is naturally cropping the image in, because it's just not, we call them full frame cameras, and you guys aren't shooting on full frame cameras. So because of that, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically, like, instead of seeing this, you see this, because the camera is already cropping the image in, so things are already tighter. So if you're shooting on a 50 millimeter lens, it might feel a little more like 60 or 65, so it's going to feel like you're even closer to your subject. So Natalie, since you shoot lay flats, investing a little bit in maybe like a 35 millimeter is another standard one that people really like, and being able to look for that used could be great. Ooh, yeah, Taylor, let me check this one. Let me check. Yep, I'm gonna look right now. Yep, that's it. That's perfect. So that is a brand new one, and it looks like, yeah, there's a used like new for $103. So if you want to save a little bit, I would, as long as they've got like 1 million good reviews, which all of these do, and it's coming in the box, those top two, use like new.
Okay.
I would say if you want to save a little bit, you could go with them.
Okay.
So yeah, and then let me look and see while I'm there. 35. Yeah, perfect. So here, actually, this would probably be better for you, Natalie. Let me go ahead and put it in the chat. This is a 35. If you stick with Nikon, I'm totally biased. I want everybody to shoot Canon, but Nikon has their good things too. So if you do,
Well, I am not partial to anything. I can do Canon.
you can do it. I just think Canon, and maybe you should like just go to Best Buy or whatever and hold it in your hands. I feel like Canon is the most intuitive. And now that I've taught this class a million times, like Nikons just don't settle into people's hands easily. My pro photographers obviously love them, but I feel like the way they're set up, the way the menu works, the way the settings work, it's just not as user friendly as Canon is. And Canon came out with their Rebel before Nikon had an entry level body, and so maybe they were just like a little bit on the curve, but I've loved them. I have shot with every level of Canon and just really loved it. But either way, I put the Nikon 35mm link here. It's about $200 for a new one. Same thing. It looks like they have some used ones for like $150, but I think that would be a perfect lens for you. It's great for portraits, but it's going to be perfect for your lay flats to just have that standard fixed focal length, but be able to have a lower aperture range. It goes down to 1.8. And to be able to kind of do those images, I think that lens would really serve you well.
But do you have the fourth with the Canons, or should I?
Let me pull it here.
I'm getting told I'm buying a Canon.
Yeah. I'll not fight on it. Let's see here if we.
I got the 2 cent, peanut gallery behind me here.
Hey, if the 2 Cent Peanut Gallery is supporting that purchase, we will take it. And of course, Canon's is more expensive. Let me see here. I had the 28 for a while. How much was that? Lenses are expensive, y'all. Just as an FYI, they are worth it. They will last you forever. They change every image you take, but they are pricey. Oh man, these are expensive. Let's see here. Let me look and see. There is a company called, this is good for both of you, called Sigma Art. And they make their own brand of lenses that a lot of times are a little bit more affordable than the actual Canon.
Taylor, do you love yours? Does she have a Canon?
Yeah, I love seem user friendly. I will say I haven't had a lot of trouble. I mean, I haven't used it a lot, but even tonight, like going through, it doesn't seem, once you get used to how to adjust the settings, and like, some of them you have to hold something and something else, but other than that, it really isn't, I don't think it's too bad, not too bad. That's what when my husband bought this for me, I talked to a lot of people I know that had Canon versus Nikon, and they said it's just a lot more user friendly than the Nikon. Unless you really know what you're doing, the Nikon might be.
I don't.
Yeah.
Me either.
I think, so we might have to stick with the 50mm for now, Natalie, unless you're able to, and I can help you. A lot of times students will email me like a week or two after class as they kind of get a budget together if they're going to upgrade their stuff. I might want you to look at the Canon 6D. So that body actually is a full frame, but it's a more affordable price, and it has built-in Wi-Fi. So it's a great Canon body. I love the Rebel series, like what Taylor has, but that one's really great. It also has good video. I'm just thinking, since you do have a business, if there's other things you might end up using it for, but because we'd be moving you to full frame, putting a 50mm on that would allow you a little more capture room. Because otherwise the lenses jump to like 500. So Merry Christmas, you can get a good lens and a new body, and like I said, if you're going to eliminate the cost of a photographer, that's going to be huge, so hopefully it'll be worth it. But yeah, take a look at some of that and I can help you.
Okay.
Another thing that I'm going to recommend, let me look it up here, is because I know it's getting late. Thanks for hanging in there. Let me, sorry, let me get the link. Okay. Yes, this. My students are obsessed with this. It is basically, and I don't know if everyone necessarily has an iPhone, but I think they make them for other types of phones. This is basically an adapter that allows you to connect your SD card directly into your phone, because in my opinion, you guys do not have time necessarily to be sitting and editing and working through images the way I do. That's not the goal. When Taylor is on vacation with her family, one, editing programs have gotten really strong on phones. So if you're going to touch up an image, you're more likely to do it there than your computer. And two, we want them quickly. We want to be able to text to grandparents, upload on social media. Natalie, like you said, you noticed that Alicia's feed had changed, and part of that was because she was able to get images quickly and use them in the moment. So this is just awesome for 12 bucks. It basically plugs into your phone, and then you can pick images. So pop it out of your camera, pop it into your phone, and move images that way. I've also found that my students have images everywhere. They have them on their desktop, on hard drives, on their phone, but nothing's organized, nothing's printed. And so this might actually help centralize. So I actually recommend for non-photographers, like getting the images you want to keep onto your phone and kind of keeping them there, so that it's an easy way to edit. And I recommend, if you guys need an app on your phone to edit, it's called PicTapGo. I will put it in the chat here. It's available. I think it's an Android and an Apple friendly app, but it is an awesome app that really just has great functionality. I'll kind of flip my, hopefully you can see without too much glare. I'm going to go ahead and pick a photo. So this was a couple of hours ago with my daughter. It was at sunset. Let me turn my screen down. So it is not the brightest photo, but it was like a perfect moment. She was waving and saying goodbye to the airplanes. And so if I go into edit and I scroll up, I basically have some like really great built-in filters that are really nice. They're not like filtery filters, a lot of them. So I can go in and I can hit a filter called Bright Side, and automatically if I hold down, there's the before and the after, but then I'm like, well, it's actually still a little dark. So I can scroll up and I can actually, you can basically layer the filters. So I can go in and I can say, I want the colors a little brighter. So now I'm going to layer a little bit of color add-on. So now we're here. And then maybe I still feel like it's a little dark for how I want it to look. And so I'm going to go ahead and brighten it up one more time. And all of a sudden in 3 swipes, I've gone from this to this, which is just a giant difference. And it looks blue on my screen, but to my eye, it's really warm. The yellow of the sun, the yellow of her outfit is all coming through. And that was without having to do any individual sliders. So I love this app. It's like a 2-second edit. I had a client of mine who took this class today send me pictures that she took on her professional camera and then edited on her phone, and they looked really great. So that's just kind of like a handy little trick for you guys. They also, sorry, if I go into their home screen, they have light. So just basically, you know, being able to brighten an image, which is really helpful. We talked a little bit about white balance, but this is the idea of going from blue to warm. You can see those yellows show up. I like my images really warm. To me, they feel like there's a lot more life in them. So just being able to like do some of that adjusting right in an app. And again, now we're from here, dark and blue, to here. It's just like night and day. And that's just an iPhone photo. Isn't that cool? So that app is really awesome. On my Instagram, which is Laura Foote, I also have a tutorial, like just a quick, like in my highlights, a little iPhone editing tutorial. So if you ever need to review it, I do have that there. And I also show people how to remove things. So I'll actually use this as an example. But there's an app, most of these apps are like $1, but this is called the Retouch app. So if I go into album, let me move my phone, and I'm going to go ahead and pick that photo. I know it's a little hard to see, but I'm going to pick that photo we were just messing with. And let's say her cup that's right here with the pink lid was like a piece of trash or something, and I wanted it out of the way. I can literally click this button. I can do that and hit this go button, and it's gone. Yay! So, Photoshop in an app, super easy. I've taken trash cans out, again, trash, things on the ground, weird poles that are coming out of things. Not that every image has to be perfect because it's not about that, you know, life happens, but this image is now ready to send to her grandma or print in her book or do whatever in about 3 minutes, not even. So those are some like kind of quick tips for editing on your phone and kind of getting your images to where they can live. I always want to make sure, you know, you're not just taking a bunch of images, but you know what to do with them. So with that, I always like to let my students know I am here. I'm available by email. One of my favorite things is getting follow-ups, especially in the next couple of weeks, because I want you shooting for 5 to 10 minutes every day, practicing what we talked about so that it kind of sinks in. And then you'll be off and running, especially for the holidays. But send me images if you're like, Laura, what happened? These are blurry, these are grainy, it's bright, or oh my gosh, I did it. One of my students last week visited Ree Drummond, the Pioneer Woman's Ranch, and she sent me a bunch of pictures of cows, some on her iPhone, some in auto, some in manual, and I loved it because she came to life because she was able to take pictures of the cows on the ranch. And so that was so fun to get an email from her. So just know that I'm here to help you and to celebrate with you. If you're buying gear, you're editing, and you have questions, I would be happy to help. And as we wrap up here, if there's any questions I can answer about anything we talked through tonight or editing and files, I would love to do that. One quick note, Natalie, for you, if you don't have white foam core, I would recommend that, and then maybe using fabric or a kind of a linen base to change up the colors behind the color and the texture behind your cake toppers, and also getting some of that foam tape that you can basically cut so that your cake topper is raised a little bit off of the board. I'm sure you've done this before because you've worked with a professional photographer, but little things like that go a long way, and even just creating a little bit of pop between what you're focusing on and the board. You're going to want to shoot by a window, so I usually recommend a table at window height, even light coming in, and then you getting on top of that if you need to, or if you can open a door. It's Indiana, so it's getting cold, and shooting on the floor, just making sure you've got as even light as possible is going to help you. So you guys have been amazing. Are there any questions I can answer as we wrap up? I know it's getting late.
Do you have any tips for shooting moving children?
Yes. So my tip is watch your shutter speed. Stay in the safe zone. Really try to not drop below 250 if you can while he's on the run. When you get your 50mm lens, keep it at 2.5 or higher, and take multiple shots. Start getting faster. If you have a shutter speed option on your camera, that's actually a setting I didn't mention to you, but a lot of times, there is a setting, you can see here, high speed continuous, single shooting, using a remote. So I usually keep mine on silent continuous, and that basically is gonna allow the lens to click faster. Again, the risk, if it's clicking fast, is that things are gonna get blurry and an image is gonna get lost. But the benefit is that a toddler that is in motion, you're probably gonna get one out of the set. And if you're somewhere and you know he's going to run, start him away from the spot you want the picture to be in. Like if there's a big shady tree and that's where you want the photo, and you know he's going to run the second you set him down in the sunshine, let him run, and then make your funny noise, and he'll be in the shade at that point, and you'll be able to get the shot.
Okay, great.
You're like, yeah, that will work.
No, that's what I do now for like iPhone photos. I put him like way far away from me, and then at some point he'll reach me.
Yes, and try to keep the sun at their back. Like I said, if the sun is behind them, they're not going to be squinting, and you'll get some really nice light behind them. Even if it's bright day, find where the sun is in the sky and just try to put it at his back. And send me some pictures. I want to see him. I'm sure he's so sweet.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. Please tell Jennifer I'm sorry. I hope that everything's okay at her house, and I will get this very ad hoc recording uploaded so that she can watch it. I just recorded once we started and she hopped out. But I'm here for you guys. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that it was helpful and that you feel better. I know it's a lot, but I truly believe like in a few days you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm going to do all the photos. So just know that I'm here. And Natalie, especially as you're updating your gear and getting used to shooting for your business, if there's anything I can do, send me a note.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.